When I first quit drinking, if you would have told me that my punishment for spending all of those years drinking was to get sober, I would have believed you. I fully believed that getting sober was the punishment for not being able to figure out how to drink properly. I desperately wanted to drink properly, and I spent so many years of my life trying to figure it out, but because I couldn't, I had to get sober. That's what I thought. That process had actually kept me drinking for a really long time. The idea that getting sober was a punishment, that I was going to just toil away the rest of my life trying to figure out how to stay sober and probably be miserable in the process. I didn't realize when I first got sober that that's not at all the way things were going to be. Popular culture is filled with this idea of people struggling their entire lives with sobriety, always on the brink of relapse, just one drink away from returning to the life of misery. And then you'd have to spend the entire rest of your life with a bunch of old men in a church basement drinking horrible coffee. And the reality is, that couldn't be further from the truth. I have had such an enjoyable sobriety, it seems crazy. If you would have told me this is how life could be, I probably would have quit drinking a lot earlier, although I wouldn't have believed you, so it wouldn't have mattered. Say I tried to get sober the first time when I was 24, and at that point I thought, I'm too young to get sober, there's no way I can spend the rest of my life sober. So I lost 10 years of my life to drinking, and by the time I was 34 and actually got sober, that's when the realization of all this hit. In the past 10 years of figuring out recovery and spending my life rebuilding and figuring out who I am and what I want in my life, I have found just immense amounts of joy and happiness, friendship, renewed relationship with my wife, my family. It's just an amazing life that you can have in sobriety. I wish that we could figure out how to change this narrative largely in society that it's not a punishment, that getting sober is not a punishment for not figuring out how to drink. It's actually just the opposite. It is a life filled with more than you could imagine. I did not want this life. I did not want to be sober. I didn't want to quit drinking. I didn't want to tell people that I was sober. I wanted to just go about my life and have it not suck anymore. But this is where I ended up. So in January of 2015, I quit drinking, and now it's January of 2025, and I'll be celebrating 10 years this year. I don't think I can go back and change any of those things, maybe someday. But if I could go back and change them, it would mean that I didn't have this life. And this life is pretty amazing. So I'm just going to keep not drinking so that I can live this life, which is amazing.